Good morning. It's the 24th of October 2018. It's another pre-breakfast video. Those that watch me regularly know that when that happens, it's usually because there's a semi-urgent message to get out there. In many ways, the message may well be what I'm wearing on my jumper today. Let love rule. Following on from yesterday's video. It's just a couple of things actually. Firstly, to wish you a good full moon in Taurus. Steve Judd, I was watching his latest video he put up yesterday, and one thing that really stood out, it's a great video actually, check it out. One thing that stood out that Steve was reminding us of is that the sign of Taurus is about values. It's about values. And I think that really links into what I was talking about yesterday in particular. Ethics, morality, values. Got a couple of things I'd just like to follow up on from yesterday's video, which was titled Horns or Halo. And in particular, the part where I was talking about migration and reminding people about the fact that Archangel Metatron in June brought through messages via me that link into what he called tidal waves of migrating people would become more and more visible. And I linked it to what's happening with Honduras, but it's way bigger than that. And I've responded to a few of the comments that have come in about it, but it's really easy to just get stuck on a detail and throw out the message. So I'm going to go back to the message and I'm going to add to it a little bit, okay? Because it doesn't really matter whether you're in the USA, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in Asia. Many different places around the world are going to see these tidal waves of migration. And this is nothing new. This is absolutely nothing new. We like to think it's new because maybe it's the first time we have witnessed it in our lifetime. But waves of migrating people have been documented since the start of time. It's there in the Bible. It's there in most centuries. The reasons why people migrate change, but migration has always been a feature of our world. The problem now, of course, is that the world is more heavily populated than it ever has been. And so it's bringing up fresh challenges. It's also linked into coming earth changes, which are going to see some parts of the world more difficult to live in than others. And that includes some of the Western countries where the earth underneath our feet is going to become more and more volatile, and some may be forced to move into other territories. Indeed, some of those who are judging those who are on the move already for maybe different reasons may very well find themselves in times to come having to uproot themselves and move to different places. And that's due to earth changes, but it's also due to earth changes in a different way, not necessarily due to quakes, volcanoes, shifting plates, but due to what Metatron talked about in June, which is the drying up of some resources, and in particular the number one resource, which is water. There are already places in Europe, in Spain in particular, which are running dry. Water is becoming scarce. You've only got to look at places in Africa to see that that is already true. Drought reigns in some parts of our world, and some places are going to become uninhabitable. So over the next couple of decades, maybe more than that, we're talking decades, not necessarily days that this is about to happen in, decades. We're going to have to get to grips with that. And that's why I'm really bringing this up as a subject to discuss from a spiritual perspective, because it's really easy to just look at one case and, as I say, throw out the message, but the message isn't going to go away. One thing I want to say in relation to some of the criticism that's come in, not much criticism at all actually, but some criticism that's come in when I talked about the Honduran caravan, as it's being called, is a big way to deflect it is to look at the news and see some of the pictures that are coming in of people that appear overweight, okay? People who appear overweight. Not everybody, of course, but I've seen some of the pictures myself. Some of them are overweight. And some of the criticism that's come in as being, well, if they're overweight, they're obviously not starving. Can we please remember that sometimes being overweight, not all people, this doesn't apply to all people that are overweight, please don't get triggered by what I'm about to say, but what we see very much within the UK is in some of the inner city estates where poverty reigns and people are below the breadline, there is obesity. There is also people who are stick thin, but there is also obesity. And that's because people who are on very low incomes, who have very little money, sometimes can't afford the good food that those of us that are in more privileged positions can afford. They will be maybe stocking up on foods which are processed, convenience and cheap. And foods like that tend to become stuffed with sugar and fat. So that is something that I wanted to mention, because just because somebody is overweight doesn't mean that they are not in a position where they are struggling. And even that word struggle, even the word poverty, we can be impoverished through many, many ways, not just through what we are able to eat or drink, but through circumstance. Can you imagine growing up in some countries where maybe you, and I've got Greece in mind here in my head, I've got Greece and I know Greek people. I've got my husband's friends with a very eminent Greek professor actually, with a wonderful family who who's done much good work, written great books, a really wise guy, and the income that he's able to bring in for his family now is so diminished due to the poverty conditions that are in places such as Greece, where you can train, you can get as brilliant qualifications, but there are no jobs. There are no jobs. And this isn't just applicable to countries such as Greece. Venezuela, yesterday, one of my friends on Facebook linked me to somebody who is one of Earth's angels, basically. A man who is just, with his bare hands, driving trucks of food and nappies and clothing into some of the places that are completely devastated by poverty in Venezuela. And so that is about food, but it's also about, poverty is about so much more than just food. It's about so much more than what we put into our body and what we look like. It's about poverty of the soul. It's about poverty of opportunity. Growing up somewhere with the best of intentions, with the best qualifications in the world, and not being able to make a living. And we're going to see more and more of this, more people moving to try to find a better life. And it's so easy to deflect from that problem just by, well, I saw the news last night and they all look fat, so they must be fine. They've got a great life where they are. Why are they moving? People who are happy, people who are settled, people who are able to live a reasonably good life don't just up sticks. Most people actually love the countries that they're born in. Most people have pride in terms of where they're born and the heritage of their country. And I just find it really offensive that some people think, don't forget that, okay? So that's one thing that is really important to say, I feel, with all of this. The other thing I want to say, and this is in answer to the critics, to be honest, it's not in answer to most of you, but it's important we remember these principles, because we're surrounded by a collective culture which is just like, oh, you know, these people don't matter, they're just after a quick buck, how are they going to impact my life? And these are difficult questions. I'm not saying that they're easy, but they are questions we're all going to be having to face. I mean, hey, I live in one of the most populated countries on earth. I mean, the UK, I think we've got about 70 million people now. We're a tiny, tiny little island. This isn't just about the USA, it's about many other countries around the world. But I'm going back to my days when I used to go to church as a girl, okay? And I'm going back to the Christian principles, the principles that Christ actually taught, to love our neighbour as ourselves, to be the one who basically holds the hand of friendship and of help to anybody that seeks it, whatever they look like, whoever they are, wherever they're from. That rule, it's not even a rule, that request, thank you, that request from the divine came from the mouth of Christ himself. And going back to my school, my days as a child, going to church every Sunday, my family were pretty involved in the church, and my dad used to run the Sunday school, actually. It's a long time ago. But the point is that there were always charitable activities going on. Sierra Leone, in particular, in the 1970s, was a country that, for whatever reason, my church was always raising money for Sierra Leone. I always remember it. Maybe they still are. Maybe it's still a country that is in trouble. I don't know. I haven't looked recently at Sierra Leone's plight. But the point was that people gave because they knew there was need. Now, for some reason, it's as though we've put a whole load of prerequisites with regard to, well, what is need? You've got to look a certain way. Maybe, this is contentious, you've got to have a certain colour. You've got to be a certain way, and then maybe we'll help you. But then we will only help you if we're okay in the first place. And yes, I understand that. Charity begins at home. Of course it does. But it doesn't exclude helping our fellow man. So these are tough, tough times, and they're tough questions that are going to be coming up, and they are not going to go away. And this isn't about Trump. This isn't about Soros. This isn't about any of the other people that you can put into the pot. Migration has been something that this world has had to grapple with, deal with, accommodate and integrate since time began. What's happening now is that those of us that are on our spiritual paths, who are linking into ascension, are being asked to respond to that in a different way, to be the ones that are the way showers and show the way forward. And we're going to have to see how that all pans out, okay? We're going to have to see how it all pans out. But all I am asking you to do is to keep an open mind, to keep the love in your heart for your fellow man, and to not just close down the argument really quickly. And it's very easy to do that. And it's really comfortable to do that. Because if I close down the argument really quickly and it's just like, oh, this is just all lies, or this has all been orchestrated by somebody else, these people aren't really what they appear to be, you're actually just deflecting from the problem. The problem's going to come back in another shape, another form. Because the truth is that many of the people that have migrated, and you may be one of them actually, that's the truth, you may be a descendant of one of them. These people, 100 years ago, Trump wasn't alive, George Soros wasn't alive. The people that you're pointing at and saying, well, they're just orchestrating all of this, so we can forget about it. They weren't even here on this planet. Migration is part of the human condition because humans are built to survive, and humans will move where humans need to be to survive. So that, plus the fact that poverty doesn't always look the way you think it does, is important. And also remembering that poverty is linked into so much more than just, have I got food for my stomach today? Poverty of the soul, poverty of opportunity, and it's a huge subject, and we're going to be coming back to it over and over again, I'm sure. Okay, 15 minutes. Let love rule. Let's just have one card, shall we, for today, and then I'm going to get on. Woke up today, and maybe it's because it's the full moon, I don't know. It's probably also because it's getting near to when I need to leave for New York. Metatron's finally started to talk to me about what we're doing. And maybe that sounds weird to you, because it's like, hold on, I booked on this course months ago. What does she mean she doesn't know what she's doing? I do know what I'm doing, of course, but the point is that the information and the energy and the download in terms of specifically which bits you're meant to be looking at, they always come very near the time of departure with Metatron, because he likes to make it as relevant as possible. So yeah, I woke up this morning and he was giving me some of the pieces of the jigsaw of what we're going to be doing, particularly on the 10th and 11th, which is the Metatron Masterclass. It's all booked up now. Really looking forward to seeing you all. The Mary Magdalene workshop on the 5th is ready to go, because I've run that a couple of times now, so I know what's happening with that one. There are still spaces available on the 6th of November for a 2-hour, I'm calling it a meet and greet, but it's not about me. It's about getting together on the 6th of November in New York City on the day I believe that the elections are happening, to just hold the space for light and peace. And we've got a lady coming who's going to be playing crystal bowls. I'm going to be doing some meditations. We'll be linking into whatever the subjects are that day that Metatron wants us to be looking at, and it won't be about party politics. There's going to be no mention of Trump, no mention of any of the other people that you may be voting for. It's not about that. It's just about holding the light. So there's still spaces on that. It's on my website. Have a look. Okay, one card Metatron for this Taurus full moon, which is bringing up, as Steve said, the whole notion of values. What are your values? What do you live by? What are you comfortable with? Okay. Queen of Cups. That's nice. You probably can't see it with the sunlight. Queen of Cups. In a way, it's almost like another card for the divine feminine energy. We can't get away from her because she's going nowhere. The Queen of Cups is the energy of a woman who does this, who lets love rule, okay, who welcomes in love, who welcomes in positivity, who is actually who has so much love within her being that she knows that she doesn't have to keep it all to herself in case, it dries up. She knows that there's enough for everybody. She knows that there's enough for everybody. There's enough resources, there's enough love, there's enough light, and the rainbow is almost there as the promise of that. So I feel that's why that card is there. There's also a little dolphin on this card. And dolphins go in pods, don't they? They need to be with others. So there's also maybe a nod to maybe get out and have some fun. Dolphins are great for having fun, aren't they? Next card on the pack is the Ace of Cups. So yeah, just confirming the energy of love. We've also got the Two of Swords, which is to do with an ending. A lot of phases of the moon are to do with endings and new beginnings, so I'm not entirely surprised to see that. I'd almost quite like to interpret these cards as let's have an end to feeling as though there is not enough for everybody, and that we have to just hold on to what is ours. No one is going to take away from you what is yours. There is enough for all. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Much love to everybody. Take care of yourself, and I shall be back tomorrow. Sun's shining here. It's beautiful. So I'll get out in that hopefully later today. Bye for now.